Is Springseek Coronis worth it? Now, when Coronis was teased, she was dressed like a nurse, carrying a gun full of her glowing vials, looking like she had just finished a shift in some fantasy hospital of some sort. I myself told myself, yep, definitely a main DPS. It also didn't help that in her teaser they only showed her on-field, which is usually not the case, as they usually do show some off-field for supports and versatiles. I mean, look at her. She's a nurse, a very hot one I must say. She's got that confidence, she has her nice weapon, and she has an aesthetic that is designed by someone who is definitely down bad, like dangerously down bad. Everything about her told me that, yep, she's definitely going to be a damage dealer, and I was actually hoping for a versatile. But if you do happen to so build her as a damage dealer, you'll find that that's not exactly her best role. And this is where the problem starts, because most of us associate guns with damage. If I see you carrying a gun, I assume you're going to be doing damage. I mean, look at Amber, she carries 2. I know she doesn't deal as much damage, but she is a vanguard, so gun equals damage. She's supposed to shoot, throw her vials at the enemies, and absolutely ruin a health bar, but she doesn't. She doesn't do that, so she is a bit deceptive when you look at the looks and what we've come to know. But although her aesthetic and everything might tell you that this is a main character, this is a main damage dealer, a vanguard, when you go to the math of it all, she's actually a support. And sadly, math will always win. I know most people will say, I'm still going to play her as a main damage dealer. Yes, you can. Her most effective position will be as a versatile support. So right now she's not the carry. Springseek Coronis is the support. She's the new engine behind the Terramark team. Yep, she will replace your Telia, which might make you think, wait, she can't really replace Telia, right? Because Telia is the main. Telia is, I usually call this game StellaSora, the all-reliable support that slots in into almost all teams. So why would you replace her? But Coronis walks in with that nurse outfit and says, I'm on shift now. Okay, enough with the nurse jokes now, I've tried. I'm not really that funny. But yes, she replaces Telia. But what makes her so good is that she doesn't just replace Telia, but she gives Nazuna a rest too. What do I mean? You're not really going to be benching Nazuna, but she does take some of the workload off of Nazuna. So let's go over the old Terramark and why it had a problem. So the traditional Terramark team, Nazuna was responsible for applying all the marks and managing all the buffs. She was responsible for the Terramark application and the Terramark buffs as well. Gary triggered those marks, yes, for the massive damage, and Telia amplified that damage with the blinding beam, but everything relied on Nazuna and her applying marks. It worked, but it was a bit stressful. The team itself is already stressful in itself because Jerry doesn't move. If you missed that, you missed everything. But then the mark consistency was not there. Nazuna had to juggle the mark application while maintaining the buffs. It wasn't the best feeling teams. It isn't still. But what does Coronis actually do that makes her the replacement to Telia and also reduce the load from the Nazuna? She combines both those roles. She will apply marks and she will amplify damage. This then frees up the Nazuna. Not focuses, but it frees up the Nazuna from babysitting our mark uptime. That alone will then reduce the inconsistency of the team. Now, here's the painful part about all of this. About her replacing Telia. You ain't replacing Telia for damage. Telia isn't in that team to deal any damage, actually. She's less than 1% in terms of damage. And if you are going to be replacing Telia, you're going to want to replace Telia with someone, right, who's going to at least try to do what Telia was doing in the team. And what do I mean by that? Telia is a support. Now, the potentials you want are there on the screen. You want lasting aftertaste, you want terracotta's, essence extraction, aromatic room, and symptom site. You want those. But here's something you should notice from the potentials that you are picking. None of them are responsible for actually increasing the damage that she deals. None of them are actually for her, but all of them are supposed to increase the team's numbers. They are all there for the team. Now, many people call this a trap potential, but I actually believe this is a potential for the future. It will get there some point. I do believe that the current Terra team is currently suffering from something the Ventus team might be suffering from as well. Now, I won't say it because I am a Gary main, but perhaps another damage dealer would actually work for this team, right? But because we love Gary here, we won't say that. The potential I'm talking about here is reciprocity. This one boosts her personal damage when marks trigger. You might be thinking, okay, this is a mark team, I want this damage, I want to give Coronis her damage. It's an appealing potential, it looks cool, but it actually is bait. We can't run away from that. Right now, it's not worth it. Keyword right now. In future, we might get a damage dealer that might actually do something for us with that. But for now, we have to stay disciplined and just keep her as the support that she is. Now, here's the worst part about this. You don't even have to level her skills. Now, it's a bit controversial. Most people will want to level up her skills, but you don't want to. Because if you are truly running her as the support that she is, you can leave her skills at level 1 because the buffs are static. Leveling them increases her personal damage, but leveling them will not do anything to the buffs that she's granting to the team, and we don't really care about the damage that she's dealing. So I know it feels really bad, especially if you looked at her and were like, I'm definitely going to be building her up for damage, but it's not the optimal build. Well, if you don't have a Gary, you could build her as a damage dealer. You so definitely could. I did recently see a build video, I think it was by Zealands. I really apologize if I butchered the name. But yes, he had a build of her being the off-field damage dealer with the Nazuna and the Tilia. Now that was actually a really nice use of her. Really nice, and he got like 200,000 score, which is really nice in the end game. So it is possible, but it's not what's currently optimal, especially if you do have the Gary. So Gary is the real star here, which is kind of unfortunate for many people who wanted a replacement for her, but maybe it is coming in the future, we don't know. Like if Coronis is the support, Jerry is the one that you should be focusing on. She should be the one who is receiving the strongest investment in. But here's the twist too. You don't even have to level Jerry's skills either. Now this one was kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around because mark damage does not scale at all on skilled level. Yes, leveling them up will increase the damage that they do, but it's not the core damage that she does. What scales the mark damage the most are emblems and attack. So you're not really looking for leveling up her skills, which kind of, it's unusual, right? But it is what this team is. It's a very unique team, and that's where Springseek Coronis finds herself in. Maybe she leaves this team in future, she leaves the mark shenanigans and she joins a pure damage dealer that will want her to deal damage, and once we get there, we will change it. We will change her build and we will get to something else. But for now, what you're aiming for her is the mark damage. Mark damage is king. It's also the stat you should be aiming for the highest, because you're not there for her personal damage. You're not there. Like, this is the very first time where pen is not the highest thing you're looking for. For the very first time, pen is not what you're looking for. Mark damage is the highest priority. Pen does come around, sneak itself in to say, hey, I also want to be picked too. But for the first time ever, mark damage is the number one thing to go for. I actually really do like this because it brings some variety to team building. I do hope that in future more teams actually take on different types of builds that force us maybe to basically have a different build. But hey, that's a line for the future. That's not a line for now. Now I will go over the pros and cons because the main idea behind this video is Coronis really worth it? She might fit into a very surprising team. Her role might be different from what I had intended to. But what's the total conclusion? Is she a must-have? Is she the unit that you really want? How good is she for your team? Well, going over the pros, she's easier to play than the old Terramark support. She frees your Tilia up for another team, very nice. And we all know the multiplicative scaling of the Mark team. She has a high damage ceiling, potentially even higher if you invest into her to deal damage in future, we never know. The cons is that her patterns don't move around, but the whole team doesn't move around, so it's something. If the boss moves, you're suffering, but that's the whole team. Even Gary suffers from this as well. So those are the two things that I can actually think of when I think of the negatives for this Terramark team. In future, you can go over a burst team that's not gonna want the potentials, right? If you notice, the potentials we had chosen for this team are the potentials that deal damage over a longer period of time. But she does have the burst type build that is instant. You know that you deal this damage immediately and you're done. Whether the boss moves or not does not matter anymore. But for now, it is a very immobile team. It is a very immobile setup. And that really is the only disadvantage that I can think of for running her in the current build. So, in conclusion, is she really worth it? First of all, I'll say if you're going to be building the Terramark team, yes, she definitely is worth it. Because we do not have another unit like the Tilia. We do not have any unit in the game that can do what Tilia does, except for her. So because Tilia is such a strong S rank support, like Tilia is S tier support, and then we have Coronis that actually replaces Tilia to some extent and also gives Nazuna less of a job to do. I believe that Springseek Coronis is a worthwhile investment. And looking into the future, she might find herself being a very great support for a future damage dealer, and skipping it right now might actually make you regret it in the future. Now, I know I don't like to advise looking at FOMO, but looking at her in the current team as well, she's a really good investment that actually improves the Terramark team by a great deal. So, here's what I'll say. If you're in it for the looks like I am, then you probably have already pulled and you're happy with your choice because she's not a bad unit. But if you're in for the damage, if you're in for the personal damage, she's not going to be dealing as much right now, but there is potential for it in the future. Whether or not you're willing to skip it until she then comes around and then can help the team. This is basically a Nazuka situation where she can help the team by dealing damage just like Nazuka does. Then in future, you might pull for a rerun or anything. But for me, Springseek Coronis is really worth it, especially if you understand her role. She's not the star of the show, she won't shine, she won't do a lot, but what she does is more than enough for the Terramark team. Now, this is the first time I've done a video like this where it's not a build guide, but it's just a retrospective analysis on the character and whether or not she's worth it. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. But until the next one, cheers.